once again, another episode of Mr. Sensible. Today, we're going to have a look at a channel called Genesis Apologetics, as they ask an important question. What happens in the mind of a Christian student when they're taught evolution? Well, thanks to the help of my most excellent patrons, we're going to have a look. Massive thanks to my amazing patrons, including new patrons Chris Kelling and David Cooley, John Bunker, Sky Wizardless, and my newest patron TC Lucas. Thank you, each and every one of you. So come on then, Genesis Apologetics, ask your question.
What happens inside the mind of a Christian student when they are taught human evolution in public school?
Good question. And what happens in their mind when they're taught maths, or geography, or literature?
Starting in 6th grade, public school students are taught that humans evolved from ape-like creatures beginning millions of years ago.
Quite right. And like with maths and geography and literature, would you rather they're not taught things as they are? Would you rather they're just taught made up rubbish, or things that are known to be incorrect?
How do Christian students reconcile this teaching with the Bible?
I don't know, but that is the problem of the students, their family, and their church. It's not the problem of the education system.
Does human evolution teaching erode the faith of some Christian students?
I'm sure it does. But then with physical geography, when they're talking about erosion and plate tectonics and volcanoes and the geologic timescales, doesn't that also erode the faith of some students? So what are we supposed to do? Just hide facts from people to keep them happy in their beliefs that are not based on fact?
To find out, let's start by taking a tour of the human evolution teaching that starts in every 6th grade classroom in California and most other states as well. Textbooks typically start the journey with Australopithecines about 4 to 5 million years ago. Lucy is the most famous of these creatures, a 3.5-foot tall ape-like creature which is surprisingly similar to a modern-day bonobo.
It's not surprising at all. They're the same family. There's similarities to other great apes as well, including us, for some reason.
Homo habilis is the next icon in the lineup, supposedly taking the scene about 2.4 million years ago. Homo erectus is next, beginning about 2 million years ago. Homo sapiens supposedly showed up about 200,000 years ago, leading to modern humans on Earth today. Students typically spend several class hours over a 2-week period covering human evolution. This instruction includes homework exercises and watching high-budget films to solidify the concepts in their minds.
It's called education.
Human evolution teaching continues in 7th grade life science and 10th grade biology, where students receive another 230 pages of evolution teaching. Does any of this square with the Bible?
Well, there are Christians who are quite happy to understand and accept evolution. But even if not, what's that got to do with it? If it happens to clash with the Bible, so what? If the Bible said that the sky was green and we look out and it's blue, what are you going to do? Deny that it's blue?
The truth is, many students are familiar with the biblical creation account, which states that God created humans in His own image out of the dust of the ground on the 6th day of creation, filled them with His breath of life, and gave them charge over all of creation, including apes.
Well, you seem concerned for any Christian students, but what about any Cherokee Native Americans who happen to be in school? I'll have to read this. They believe that the earth was created out of mud that grew into a volcano. Animals began exploring the earth, and it was the buzzard that created valleys and mountains in the Cherokee land by the flapping of his wings. After some time, the earth became habitable for the animals, once the mud of the earth had dried and the sun had been raised up for light. There is nothing special about the Christian creation myth. It's just another story, creation myth. When designing educational programs, it's not taken into account. What they do is take the evidence, take the science, and teach that.
Adam also named all the animals, including apes, the same day they were created. The first chapter of Genesis states 7 times that animals were created uniquely to reproduce after their own kind. And this is exactly what we see today. Apes produce apes, and humans produce humans.
So did Adam also name the duck-billed platypus, or the kangaroo, or polar bear? I don't recall many polar bears being around the Middle East.
Students see the obvious differences between these two accounts of human origins. One has humans evolving from millions of years of death and survival of the fittest.
Millions of years of death and survival of the fittest. Do you even know what survival of the fittest means? It's not talking about groups of creatures getting together and scrapping it out and find out who gets killed. It's talking about fitness to survive, i.e. the ones who are most successful at breeding, most successful at feeding themselves.
And the other has them spontaneously created out of the dust in the image of a loving, intentional God who put us here to govern the earth.
Would this be the same loving God who instructed Abraham to kill his son?
However, many students attempt to integrate these two beliefs and become theistic evolutionists.
Well, if you can't let go of your faith, that's probably a sensible thing to attempt at any rate. What's not sensible is to ignore facts in favour of an unsubstantiated belief.
Believing that God used evolution to create life on Earth, and denying the creation account and authority of Scripture, leading some to a lifetime of picking and choosing the truth they want from the Bible.
So I assume you never eat shrimp, because according to Leviticus, that's detestable. And also, according to Leviticus, you won't wear cloth of 2 threads. And before you say, aha, but that's the Old Testament, the 10 Commandments are in the Old Testament. Do you pick and choose science as well? You're happy to ignore evolution, but do you accept modern medicine? Hypocrisy much?
For some, the seeds of doubt that are planted during this teaching will later result with the student leaving the faith, contributing to the exodus we are seeing of many of our youth.
Or perhaps they're just seeing the light. What do you want to do? Chain them up?
I know the Bible says that God created humans in his own image, out of the dust, and to rule over the animals. But it sure seems that my textbook has a lot of evidence that humans slowly evolved from apes over millions of years.
Very true, kid. Study it well.
Where did all those fossils come from if humans didn't evolve from them? They sure look like a lineup of apes becoming human.
Yep, they do.
And they sure make it seem like every scientist believes in evolution.
Well, not every scientist, but according to the last survey, around 97% of scientists.
I don't want people to think I'm stupid for believing in the Bible.
Well, I wouldn't want people to think you're stupid either. Unfortunately, it's your upbringing that's put you in that position. When you finish studying the subject, if you still believe that the creation story is the correct story, then stick with that. But keep an open mind.
But here are some examples of what students are not taught in school. Since Lucy's discovery in the 1970s, a firestorm of disagreement has emerged about exactly what type of creature she is, whether she lived in trees or walked, or even her gender.
Let's look at some of the comments on that diagram. Lucy's brain 1/3 the size of a human's, the same as a chimp. Yeah, well, she was not a fully evolved human. Our brains grew larger as we developed. The fact that one bone actually belonged to a baboon. Okay, so a bone got muddled in. It's obviously been discovered. Lucy or Lucifer? Gender confusion in the Pliocene. It's incredibly hard to tell from just bone fragments the sex of the creature. And studies on Lucy's inner ears reveal she walked on all fours just like living apes do. Are you sure about that? I'll show you in a minute. And then further on, down, the order of man. Lucy was a real swinger. Her pelvis shows a flair that is better suited for climbing than for walking. Yeah, I'm sure it was better suited for climbing than for walking. That doesn't mean she couldn't walk. And Her inner ear may indicate a preference or a norm for walking on all fours. But let's look at a modern bonobo, just like you said her skull looked like. Bonobos may prefer and normally be in trees, but quite obviously they can walk upright, just like Lucy.
And all they can find of Lucy's kind is fewer than 500 bone fragments, representing only a few dozen creatures at most. Lucy is just an extinct ape. Do students know these facts? Sadly, most do not, and most students don't know that 46% of Americans believe that God spontaneously created humans less than 10,000 years ago.
Yes, well, science isn't a democracy, is it? Doesn't matter how many people think that. The question is it? A lot of people think Elvis is still alive. So if we all believed Elvis is still alive, does that mean he's alive?
And that thousands of scientists don't believe in evolution.
Well, as I've already said, it doesn't matter if that is thousands of scientists. It would appear to be around 3% of scientists. And before Darwin and Wallace came up with their theory, nobody believed in evolution because nobody knew about it. We know better now.
To help students affirm their faith in the Bible, Genesis Apologetics has produced the Debunking Human Evolution books in both high school, college, and junior high versions. These books affirm the biblical truth about human origins and show students the massive gaps in the evidence supporting the idea that humans evolved.
So to counter real science, you come up with indoctrinating books. If you're correct, then you should be able to show scientifically you're correct. And if your scientific evidence is strong, you'll be able to knock evolution into a hat. And creationism would be taught in schools. You may be some time there. You're onto a loser, really, because on one side, we've got masses and masses of evidence. And on the other side, you've got trust this book. Do yourself a favour and actually learn about evolution. Learn about the predictions it can make. Learn about the fact that we have actually witnessed speciation. Learn about ring species. Learn about the discovery of human chromosome number 2, which is actually 2 ape chromosomes fused together. That's why we have 23 and apes have 24. By all means, teach your children about your religion. That's fine. But don't lie. Don't lie about science. If your religion's going to die because it can't show that it's true, then so be it. A lot of other religions have died before. Look at all the stuff with Thor, Ra, and 1,001 other religions. They died when people learned better. Yours is dying because people know better. Thank you very much for joining me, everyone. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Just hit mini-me down in the corner. I look forward to seeing you all next time. Until then, stay sensible.
Shut up and sit down.